Alright, your code surface rules and interpretation for it. Rule 1. Loading of the empty foreign cars. Unless covered with the car surface door of the directive moving under the optional employee empty mileage charge provision of Title 49 CFR 1039.14C11 as provided with the car surface rule 5. The foreign cars may be loaded without regard to route of the destination. Rule 2. Empty foreign cars not needed for loading. Handling cars unless covered with the car surface door of the directive foreign cars not needed for the loading must have the doors closed and may be delivered to the home road in conjunction with the subject rule 6 for the forward of the road, including the haulage right with the carrier at its hand with the roomage originally received under the load with the junction was received except for the handle with the road haul with the car's direct conjunction connection ownership that may not be delivered empty to the road which does not have the direct connection with the car owner. The junction was received under the load with the junction with the car owner. The car must deliver the owner at the junction. Return with the delivery road, including haulage rights and car tenant with the then hand with the switching and the switching only when the switching services unless at the junction with the home road. Store applies to only boxcars authorized in Title 49 1039.14 C12 that are not moving under empty mileage charges. B. Notification intention storage cars. Store cars. The holding of the railroad must notify the car surface officer with the owning of the railroad as the intention for the store cars under the provision for this rule. Notifications must be transmitted by the midnight of the third day after the cars was released from the inbound land within received the initial storage loading point if one of the following manners. Train 2 messages by telephone conformed in writing 3. 2. The initial number of the individual car. 3. Including the date location where the cars were released and empty received with the initial storing point. See definition of junction. Junction U for the rule means that the station where the road interchange with the cars the common point from which the switching limits over their own lines or intermediate lines or carry ferry flow over the such limits routes the interchange shall be considered direct connections. The information should be read for the industry reference junction interchangeable file when the interchange is other than their own rail of the channel throughout the interchange is affected must be shown. Rule 3 is initially not used. Rule 4. Car flow balance. Upon request for the railroad business service division of the AAR may direct and administer the car flow balance of the system between the railroad and other railroads which have agreed to such covering of the cars of the respective ownership. Rule 5. Boxcar moving under the Title 49 CFR 1039.14. Empty boxcars move at the request of the owner of the Standard Safety Transportation Board Association or the Association of American Railroad under the provision of Title 49 CFR 1039.14 C11 may be suggested for the optional charge per mile that is they authorized therein. The empty mile charge of the Title 49 CFR 1039.14 C11 is adjusted for inflation deflation using the rail cost adjusting factor published periodically in the Surface Transportation Bar in Ex Parte number 290 or sub number 2, effective October 1st, 2017. Empty mile charge of 39 cents. Interpretation question. Can a haulage rights of the carrier tenants request for the optional mile charge for the move of the empty box at the request of the owner of the Surface Transportation Board or the Association of Administrative Railroad? Yes. Rule 6. Demand of the return of the car to the original junction. A home road made demand of the return of the empty car for the junction was delivered under the load of the movement of the traffic of the movement regularly through the junction point with utilizing some of the same equipment type of the applicable with the car grade required for such return. However, the cars offered through the home road for repairs in accordance with the maintenance interchange of the rule must be accepted of the owner at a junction point with the car surface officer for the home road must notify the car surface officer for the receiving the road specifying the equipment type of the codes and car grade if applicable to particular junctions involved. Interpretations. Car surface rule 6 of the 2 a railroad which may deliver the regulated direct connection through the junction traffic any kind of the zone and this car some of the class right of the connection particular participating with the handling of the traffic at the junction point with the use of the point of the interchange for return to the class of the empty car with engaged in the surface instead of the returning them some of the other less favorable receiving and owning the railroad April 1st 1923. The question, can a haulage right carrier tenant demand return empty cars at the junction where delivered under the load? Yes, but only with those cars of the same equipment type and the grade if applicable the load cars if it is moved as a line haul carrier through a junction. Rule 7. Interchange error movement. A. Responsibility for the car to deliver. The car shall be for the having and deliver the connection rail with the twin plate for the track agreed with the plan that designated with the interchange traffic the track such as deliverables proceeding by or company proceeded by in the case of the non-EDI roads of the necessary data for the forwarding and ensuring the delivery accepted the design representative of the receiving the road. The character of the necessary data will determine each of the receipt of the road within accordance with the industry defined the EDI standard, the rail standards. All cars delivered in interchange shall be prescribed with the EDI in advance interchange consisting of 418 transaction set. 2 carriers not into general compliance with electronic data interchange that is generally not furnishing proper data according with the industry defined in electronic data interchange railroad standards will be subject to the graduated penalty assessment by the Association of American Railroads accordance with the class of the railroad until such time that the general compliance is obtained. The railroad may request an Association of American Railroad investigation railroad to determine the compliance with the paragraph effective June 1st, 1990. The Association of American Railroads to determine that the railroad is not generally compliant with the following penalty assessment may become applicable in 30 days after such determination. The railroad does not reach general compliance within 30-day period. The penalty assessment scale is as follows: Class 1 carriers $500 per day, Class 2 carriers $200 per day, Class 3 carriers $100 per day. Carriers may enter into bilateral agreements to cover the special circumstances. Note the general compliance is defined in the electronic data interchange and play for the interchange points, for allowing that periodically some of the cars may not be reported through the electronic data interchange due to the clerical error or mechanical difficulties. Notwithstanding the foregoing paragraph, the receipt of the road shall be responsible for the car's contents of the car hire with the receipt of the proper data for the forwarding, ensuring delivery. The responsibility shall continue the respect for the cars rejected the designated representative with the receipt of the road for such cars that have to return delivered in roads. The effective paragraph altered with the special arrangements made between the road concerned. B. Proper interchange for cars. Prompt interchange for the cars. Each railroad will be due regard with the efficiency economically railroad operating practice with the condition beyond the carrier's control with the interchange within 24 hours after arrival. The releasing interchange station. All cars which are properly made interchange in accordance with the provision of Section A of this rule subject to the following exemptions. 1. Traffic covered by the embargo of the equipment alert. 2. Cars covered with the notification from the delivery carrier's train number 08 or train number 10 message confirming with a confirmation through the receiving carrier that is unable to receive. 3. The cars which cannot be placed physically upon the designated interchange track. C. Delayed interchange. When the interchange required in Section B23 of this rule cannot be accomplished with the provision of the car hire rule 15 applies. D. Lack of necessity documents for the load for the cars. In the event of the load for the cars placed in the interchange to the track with not necessary data for the forwarding receiving the carrier will give them written notification of electronic data interchange 425 railway bill request to deliver the carrier with the lack of such forwarding data. Upon request of the carrier to delivering the car without providing with the proper forwarding data, the receiving the carrier will return such car that deliver the carrier's designated interchange with the receiving the carrier's agree that can be delivered in the proper carrier with the same switching district. When immediate switching carriers are received with the disposing of the such cars with the same as the switch the district of the intermediate switching of the car hire charges applicable will be paid in line haul delivering carrier except for those with switching carriers directly responsible. E. Error delivered. Receiving the carrier options. An option for the receiving carrier can deliver into an error may be returned to the delivering carrier to be delivered to the prompt carrier with the same switching district. Or 3. Emptied move to the direction of the home road accordance with the car service rule 2 for the special car orders or directives. F. Error delivery notification of definitions. The receiving of the car must be promptly notified to the delivering carrier with the error to deliver the noticing and involving the errors in the local server the notice of the involving errors and run through the train for the door blocks must be sent with the person responsible for the local interchange point when the notification returned for the end of this rule with the method of the modified with the agreed in writing with the carriers involved upon the return of the charge cars interchange within the air delivered in the carrier with the notification will be made as provided within a 418 rail advance interchange or IMA 01 or movement of authority code. Electronic air deliveries for the purpose of this rule as defined as load cars involved with the air delivered road not in the waybill routing. B. Delivering empty equipment. 2. The empty cars are involved with the air deliveries. A. The road is down to the waybill routing, which should be accompanied with the waybill transmitted industrial identified and electrical data interchange rail stands, but such waybill is missing and complete in air respect of the movement. The instruction for the purpose of this rule, the latest contents for the empty tanker cars is considered necessary waybill information for the movement. C. Delivered as load. D. Delivers in violation of car service rules, special order for the door directives when the intermediate switching car service carrier is used for disposing of such cars. Intermediate switching of the car hire rules which are applicable except for those switching carriers directly responsible will be paid in delivering line haul car carrier delivered to the carrier switching services but not ordered by the carrier. Interpretation of the question after the car has been accepted, the designated representative for the receiving road for the delivering road relieved from the responsibility for the damage of the car and the contents. Yes, to June 20th, 1924. Question: where the cars have been accepted with the designated representative for the receiving of the car but not accompanied with the receiving property data for the forwarding, ensuring the delivery of the receiving the road with the relieved of the responsibility of damage of the car contents. Answer: no, but the rule will give the right to the receiving the railroad to refuse the accept the interchange rule of which are not accompanied with the receiving the proper data for the forwarding, ensuring the delivery. When such cars are not accepted the interchange, they are still in possession of the delivery road. June 20th, 1924. When loading freight contained with the shipment is destined to non-agency station, a station at which with no freight of the agent with the bill contact with insufficient prepaid, if is offered for the interchange, it shall be accepted for the connection with the carrier and forward to the destination. June 25th, 1926. Rules A. Association of American Railroad accounting divisions make provision for the adjusting freight charge between the originating and delivering carrier. Haulage rate rights carrier with the tenant is responsible for the error delivery, therefore must be maintain electronic data interchange or paper documents with the receipt empty car for the delivery of forward traffic. This includes the data delivery of the empty cars under the Association of American Railroad cars subject to the rules or orders directives. Rule 8. Advertisement. The placing of advertisements of the banners of any kind upon any freight passenger for the car or locomotive, including permanent stake for which they are part on open top cars, and is prohibited except advertisement of the banners may be placed there on photographic with the purpose of only with such as equipment the rest for the private car track with the serve the tracks for the road. When placed, must be removed. The movement of the equipment placement, the removal to be by an expense for the shipment of the consignor. The advertisement may be pointed with the passenger equipment of the use of the special train move with the expense for the paying with the removal to be borne by the user that does not prohibit the placing of the advertisement of the banners on landing of the attachment with the temporary stakes used to secure landing of the open top car of the steam mechanical division interchange. Rule 984. Rule 9. Steamship, ferry, and barge restriction. Cars of the railway ownership does not be loaded for or delivered to the steamship, ferry, barge line for the transportation by the water, except for the transportation interstate commerce for the common carriers water between these within the continental United States, not including Alaska, without permission with the owner field with the business of the division. SCO number 30. Rule 10. Responsibility charged when necessary the transferring rearrangement of the landing, unless otherwise agreed. But the cost for the transferring and rearranging landing of the freight car shall be assumed with this valve. C field manual interchange. Rule 92. A. By the delivering railroad when the transferring arrangement with the rearrangement of the load of the junction is due. 1. The defective equipment that is not safe to run or unsafe for the landing. 2. The car is not loaded with the compliant with the following rules governing load for the commodity for the open top cars. 42. Circular with the covering loads for the cars loaded shipments for the commodity for the closed cars. And C. Department of Transportation regulation transportation explosive and other dangerous article for the freight. 3. Normal load that becomes concentrated overload with due to the shifting and load in the route. B. By switching the road haul originating the carrier with the transfer and the rearrangement of loaded junction from the intermediate point of the due. The load exceeds with the stencil load limited to the overload of it of the violation of the rule for the governing load commodity for the open top cars of the 42 service or 42 series. The circular cover the load of the car loading shipments and commodities and closed cars except when the landing of it is being concentrated over due to the load shifting and landing of the route. 3. Cars and other cars prohibited the interchange of Rule 90 unless otherwise waiver has been issued. C. Originating road haul carrier. The road will originate for the billing and participate with the road haul revenue with the transfer, the rearrangement of the landing of the junction with the intermediate point due, the gross weight of the car landing, the excess for the published weight restriction, and the current issue for the publication rail line clearance, the dimension of the load open top of the car being set for the publishing clearance to any of the roads and indicating the route is shown in the current issue for the publication rail line clearance. Closed car with the not published the clearance for any of the roads of rail line clearance. 4. Cars whether they cannot pass for the proof of the third rail clearance for the Association of American Railroads is shown with the current issue for the publication rail line clearance. 5. The car with .com which cannot be handled with the destination due to the exceeding with the proof limited of the clearance of the Association of American Railroads shown with the current issue for the publication rail line clearance. See outline equipment diagram of the proof of the limited of the clearance is shown with the current issue with the publication rail line clearance. 6. Car loads with the violation cars rule service rule number 9. D. And by the receipt of the railroad when the transferring rearrangement of the load junction intermediate point to the cars with the proper load with the 2. The receipt of the road with the refusal with the except for the which the company with the authority for the transfer of the adjusting load. In such a case, the delivering road shall effect the transfer of the adjustment in such a load as the rendering bill versus the receiving the road Cars which cannot be handled with the destination result of the disability of the receiving line. 4. The receiving the road design to transfer the safe over the cost of the care of the car hire. Rule 11. Weighing of the car. The first road haul carrier shall be responsible for providing the scale weight for all the car loads, including loading on the terminal switches lines. Outbound road haul. One of the following weight endorsements. Ship with the weight of the range with the weights to provide with the ship that determined around under the control condition destination weight of the arrangement. The weights provided with the cosigner of the received under the control condition. Tariff for the authorized weight with the weights authorized by a tariff for the classification. 4. Manifest to weigh the top open flat car or FAK weights based on the SWIP of the manifest. Official weight with the Federal Grain Inspection Service of the state agency delegated by the Federal GIS. Grain exchange weights authorized for the control of the grain exchange that each carrier is en route with the responsible for furnishing the information substituting care of the route of the interchange prior to the interchange. B. Missing endorsement. Unless otherwise agreed with when the cars are delivered on one road haul, the end of the carrier on the way bills and transmitted and received defined in the electronic data interchange rail standard that do not indicate the scale weight or one or more valid weight endorsements is then weighed portion of the transaction not receiving the specified electronic data interchange weight transaction. The carrier participating in the route, including an intermediate switching line, and may weigh the car with originating the road haul carrier shall pay the weight of the carrying $75 cars per $75 per car weight. The first subsequent carrier for the failing of the furnish the next road weight information specified in paragraph B, but shall pay the weight of the carrying of $75 penalty per car weight. Failure to forward the weighting of data of the road, transmitting the weight of the data of the special electronic data interchange weighting transaction must indicate the name of the transaction along with the date of the transmitted along with the weight of the data required in paragraph B if the scale weight is used. Failure including the weighting of data will result in $75 penalty per car with the weight payable with the weighting with the carrier transmitting weigh bill. RD handling bills. Bills are under the rule of the B presented with 3 months of the last day of the 1 month in which the penalty charge of the crew must be accompanied with electronic data the interchange transmission with the create the way bill. The carrier the receipt of the such bill may be also disputed with the return explanation with unpaid items within 3 months from the last day of the month of the receipt. The definition of loading point with the point where the loading is complete with the considered with the point of origin of the stop off the car of the road haul carrier on which the load is complete with shall be responsible for complying with the paragraph A and B. F. Interminal services. Unless otherwise agreed, the road on which the car is loaded shall be responsible for the proper weighing of the car moving over the interterminal switching services. The weighing of this requires the assessment of the freight charges. G. Short lines. Railroads are the defined appendix B with the code car hire rules freight that do not have scales. Should they make an arrangement with the connection with the further weighing of the cars loaded with the land with the road haul with the short line, otherwise provision with the paragraph B applies. Interpretation question. What if the haulage rail rights of the carrier have the obligation to provide the weights to a scale? Answer: when the first road haul carrier. Rule 12. Cars containing refuses. Cars containing refuses may reject by the receiving the road, but the other offered to interchange this empty cars except for the empty box of gondola cars grade X, Y, and Z. See office official OT 34. Rule 13. Intentionally not used. Rule 14. Commodities that may constrain the future loading. In the boxcar grade A and B with the A Association American Railroad car grade system with the refrigerator cars may not be loaded with the K grade commodity listed in Appendix A of the list of K grade commodities. Most municipal waste. The standard SCC code 4029114 grade W. Car grade W may only be loaded with an equipment designed for that purpose. And the boxcar refrigerator loaded with the variation A and B with above becomes necessary to renew the floors, lining, sheathing, including associated parts with a portion thereof in order to restore the car to the previous loading classification. Because of the such loading with the cost of the repairs notwithstanding any of the provision of these rules should be assumed with the road, each of the switching and the road haul permissible or responsible for furnishing the car with such loading. The commodity containing the proteins delivered with the ruminants within N grade commodity listed in Appendix A may only be loaded with the covered hull hopper cover the A or mechanical interchange LO assigned by the purpose. The paragraph does not provide any authority to loading with non-existent where none existed before. If the cover hopper car is loaded with the violation over the D above the provided with the shipper and the violation validated with the empty with the billing is struck with the car for the rules, the railroad either switching a road haul with the passenger with the furniture for the car hauling car for the such loading with the shall bear with the cost of the administration, consequent to improper loading of the paying with the car owner with the subsidiaries of settlement mutually agreed upon with the party does not exceed with the settlement value outlined in Rule 107 over the AA interchange rules. Cars remaining in the service will assign with the car grade M, which shall remain in the car with the life of the car with the notifying the paragraph E with the construe with the supersede modify the rights of the obligation of any of the party under the contract will applicable such matter in paragraphs E. Rule 15. Request for cars. Information to be recorded. The carrier should be recorded with all the requests for the cars loading within order to cover the more than one day. This must state the number of the cars wanted separately each for the day of the request should include the following information: date, time, name of the party, name of the person receiving the request, kind of size of the cars wanted, number of the cars wanted, date of the wanted of the commodity to be loaded, the destination and route, and 9 the price for the authority reference number or tariff or contract number. B the road must be the road that must record the road request for the cars shall be accepted only by roads which serve the switch of the cars order in it. The road haul traffic originating switching service of one of the cars originating with the switching service of the carrier shall inform the originating road haul carrier of the order if the such cars are not immediately available from the overhauling road hauling of the switch carrier might take such action but is necessary to provide the equipment for the swippers. These actions may include but are not limited to ordering the appropriate equipment from the other road haul carriers. The cars ordered by the switching carriers from the originating road haul carrier to return loading with the originating road haul services will be furnished with the originating road haul carrier in the same manner in the same extent as the cars ordered in the street is directly served by it. The provision not intended to affect the rights and obligations of the switching carrier or originating road haul carrier may have the supply of the equipment under law and or lawful tariff provisions. Intra-terminal traffic. Switch carriers are obligated to furnish the arranging of the cars required for the loading of the destination with the same of the switching limits. Interpretation. Question. What is the haulage rights of the carrier attendant responsible to ship the cars ordered when it is considered the line haul carrier directly serving the shipper? Rule 16. CSD 145. Car service directive with 145 and 435 assignment. Procedure for the assignment. When specific cars are covered in the car service directive, the 145 and 435 here for the assignment, the shipper to you for the such assignment shall be made subject to the following conditions. The shipper may request for the rating of the origination road haul carrier assignment the last 10 days before it is intended to you for the specific number of the cars originating with the carriers agree with the special assignment the desired or the road haul carrier to participate in the assignment. If then it will advise the shipper that in accordance to make the request instructs other carriers of the road haul carrier may assign with the passenger may assign cars that must have the occurrence of the originating carrier, which may not be switching carrier. 2. Pools assignment, including the car's owners cars and of ownership other than the originating road haul carriers may be expanded only upon the acceptance of the originating road haul carriers. 3. When the cars are assigned with accordance with the rule, will remain with the tree that is assigned, and the cars until the ship of the originating of the road haul carriers pool operating with the owning railroad. So for the notice for the assignment, then modified and cancelled with 1 day written notice insufficient. B. Handling of the empty assigned cars. All assigned cars that are accepted in car service rules 1 and 2 of the cars assigned with the ship will not be held empty en route to loading of the point except as follows. 1. Upon written instruction to the assigner, when the assigner cannot immediately accept the arrival of the loading point, cars that cannot be reasonably be held other with the track's loading point if the following applies. Assigned cars except for those of the cars assigned with the national customer pools can only be held in route of the railroad for the cars the which of the pool is assigned with the pool operator. B. The cars assigned with the national customer pool may only hold the in route with the railroad that are subscribed so that to that pool. The car rule higher 15 applies to be assigned with the car immediately railroad in route with the pool operator cannot accept the interchange. And 3. For the necessary repairs not cleaning. C. Reporting assignment. The assignment of the carrier of the specific cars for the use of the shipper at a particular point must be reported with the designated pool, reported with the pool to the business service division of the Association of American Railroad. The reporting must comply with the formats of the timelines prescribed in the Mueller data specification log. The business service division of the Association of American Railroad will maintain with the current record of the cars assigned with the distribute with such information with the cars owners assigning the cars to the specific shipper of each of the location and well of the roads or originating with the traffic assignment, including operating switches line, shipper to the shipper, including the foregoing provision with the paragraph, and the needs not to apply with the cars assigned with the use for the shipper at a particular point, or system cars for the single road haul line carrier shipper with the shipper at a specific point. Such a point. Alright, designated pool reporter assigned with the care of the specific car of the governance cars of the directive of the 145 and 435 series of the duty agency of the comedy for the pools must be reported with the designated pool reported with the business service with the Association of American Railroads. The reporting must comply with the 4 minutes time limits prescribed in the Human data specification in the light manual. The foregoing provisions of the paragraph need not apply when all the cars assigned with the agency commodity pools are a system of the cars. Interpretation. Question: can a haulage right with the carrier lieutenant create an Euler 16 C code pools for the shipper agent contained with the commodity with the pools? The answer is yes. Rule 17. Arbitration Committee is rendered the formal interpretation of these rules and settled disputes arising under them. The Safety Operation Management Committee via SOMC, acting with the Operation Transportation General Committee via the Operation Maintenance Department, shall act in Arbitration Committee with the members representing with the majority of the total votes of the Arbitration Committee, and the membership shall present with the constitute with quorum. In the event of the question dispute with the arise concerning the rules that must be submitted to the Arbitration Committee with the abstract with the Assistant Vice President, Business Services Secretary. The abstract shall briefly set forth the matter of the interpretation of the portion of the issue of the instant dispute with each of the party. Interpretation of the rules, orders, directives upon the position based of the arbitration committee shall be based on the decision under the rules and the abstract submitted, but there shall be submitted should one of the parties be refused. Particularly, the arbitration committee will be concerned with the case for the price with the information submitted to the participating party. The case of the question shall arise not covered the rules of the parties disagreeing by but not constitute consent submit each of the such questions to the arbitration committee, and expense for the required of the arbitration committee shall be divided equally between each of the parties to be disputed. The decision for the arbitration committee shall be final. Alright, Rule 18, Interpretation and Revisions. In general, the Equipment Assessment Committee of the Association of American Railroads shall have the authority to informally interpret the rules to make the recommendation charge of the revision. Therefore, the Safety Operation Management Committee, acting as Operating Transportation General Committee, under the approval of the Safety Operation Management Committee, with such changes for the revisions for these rules will be submitted to subscribe to the vote of the letter ballot, one vote with each of the revenue freight car being railroad reporting marks, which is owned and controlled by the subscribers, with an affirmative majority vote of all the subscribers. The freight cars necessary for approval. Pre-classification status. For the purpose of this rule, all subscribing railroads should be deemed by the staff of the classification 1, 2, and 3, the based on the subscribing railroad's owner operating the revenue set forth in the classification rule of the Surface Transportation Rule Board, Title 49 CFR 1120111, and amendments thereto with respect to subscribing railroads operating the revenue generally, though calculated with non-current U.S. currency for the purpose of these rules. The value of such railroads operating revenue shall be the operating revenue reported the end of the such railroad reporting year of the calendar, otherwise converted to the U.S. dollar in accordance with the applicable currency conversion with the report rate reported in the Wall Street Journal of the latest business day with applicable reporting that year. Rule 19, Contact Registration. In order to prevent the current accurate contact information in the industry, each of the carrier must at least have at least one car served with the rule contact with the rail incorporated with the Find Us Rail application. The Find Us Rail can be assessed at Rail Incorporated with the Find Us Rail Pub Home Action Due. All information required for the Find Us Rail must be supplied and maintained by each carrier. Alright, Appendix A shows the carrier services rule of the commodities in the grade K, N, and W. This shows a list of the products that are listed with the K, N, or W for this Rule 14. There's K, N, and then W. Alright, then we're going to read the assessment orders.